Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar, Simplifying Document Management Related Tasks in your school district with automation. My name is Nick Vergara. I'm the marketing specialist here at Square 9. I'm here today with Regional Sales Director Justin Wilson, who will focus on ways to increase efficiencies throughout your school district, utilizing digital transformation. Before we get started, this webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you via email. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the Zoom platform, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So I will hand it over to Justin to get started.
Thanks, Nick. Good afternoon, everyone. Justin Wilson, as Nick mentioned, and my job today is to walk through the software, particularly as it relates to education and how we can support education initiatives throughout the organization, leveraging digital transformation. Now, digital transformation means different things to different folks. And so today we'll talk specifically about, what we're talking about or what we're going to leverage to help out. But essentially, it's document management. So call it advanced scanning, document management, enterprise content management, whatever you want to focus on. Here at Square 9 Softworks, a little bit about us before we get into, the software. We are a provider of digital transformation solutions. And one of the neat things about us is that we do releases every year. The importance of this is that means we are an active development company. So we are constantly improving our software, adding new features, new technology, things like that, to further assist our customers and your customers with enhancements to digital transformation. We really pride ourselves on support, not only sales support, marketing support, those types of things, but also customer support. And so if you do have questions about the software, if you've got an issue, those types of things, on our website, we actually publish our support timer. Support average response time is usually under 30 minutes, and we're the best in the industry as we support the software and our customers. The other thing is that folks who invest in software from us stay with it. And so we have a 96.5% customer retention rate, renewal rate. What that means is that our customers who leverage the solution find value in it from that perspective. And so, some of you may have already invested in our solution, you're looking for ways to expand it. Some of you may be fresh to the software. It's important to know that it is important that customers can take advantage of it and that they continue to take advantage of it over time. The last thing I like to point out is that we do have over 13,000 unique customers, and that's from small business to enterprise. And the importance of that is that we're a scalable solution. So today I'm going to show you kind of everything that Square 9 can do as it relates to documents within an organization for education. But there's places to start. You can start small, you can grow large. You don't have to pick one solution or everything that you see today. Maybe you just need help with back scanning. Maybe you need help translating paper-based forms into digital forms. Maybe you don't want to store student records, you want to store finance records. All of those things are okay. And the fact that we're scalable and can present solutions across those also is something that's very unique to us and allows our customers to expand as they see fit. We also have, some awards, but more importantly, down here at the bottom, we are SOC 2 and HIPAA compliant. So very important as you look to secure information, student records, HR, finance, inside of your education districts, those types of things. Very important to understand that we do take security very seriously. We take compliance very seriously. And so we work to ensure that we maintain those compliances by even getting third-party audited on a regular basis. So as we look at how we can help school districts, as we look at how we can help education organizations, some of the challenges that we know that you face is, how do we manage all of the documents that reside inside of our organization? Certainly the student information system has a way to create content and a way to store some documents, but it doesn't necessarily store everything as it relates to a school's needs. And so leveraging a solution that can augment your student information system, or even a solution where we can centralize the storage of documents outside of the student information system is certainly a valuable tool, and that's one of the things that we provide. While we're doing that, we also want to make sure that not only are we protecting student information, things that might have, PII, personally identifiable information on it, or things like health screenings or, those types of things. We also want to make sure that we help you comply with your FERPA mandates, your HIPAA mandates, those types of things as it comes to the compliances that you are required to adhere to. Certainly even things in the finance department, if you get audited by the state or those types of things, if you're a public school system, the ability to be able to provide finance information immediately or a report on it to certain folks certainly helps out with some of our reporting compliances as well. We have the ability to maintain thousands of student forms, applications, other PDF-based records over their mandated retention schedules. And those are the things that typically are generated internally, those types of items, but ultimately even things that you create internally. So Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, PowerPoints, pictures of things, videos of, maybe last year's school play, those types of things. We can store all kinds of records inside of the solution. It's not just limited to PDFs or those types of things, but ultimately the student forms, applications, those types of documents that you typically would generate on a piece of paper are also things that we can bring in digitally in a PDF format. And then the importance of this is while we're, perhaps out of the office in some sort of remote work environments, as we're, located across different schools across the district, if you have multiple locations, being able to share those records with team members, being able to send them out to parents, even while we're in these different disparate locations is certainly something that's a challenge for school districts and something that we can help alleviate with our software. And so with the advantages of a solution like ours, you certainly have the ability to increase staff efficiency. So if multiple staff members across the district can access it regardless of building securely, then that certainly presents a benefit. They don't have to pick up the phone or send an email to somebody at the administrative office to pick up a document and send it back or scan it and email. It's readily available to them. And so that increases some of our efficiency. The ability to protect confidential information, student information certainly, but also HR records, things like that, where we have this private information, being able to secure it into a system where we have to have usernames and passwords. And then even after that, we have to have permissions to access certain types of records inside of the software also presents benefits to the district or to your organization. And so securing those records with those usernames, passwords, being able to protect that information, ensure that you're maintaining your secure compliance for your organization, those types of things are also very beneficial to the district because now we have a plan in place, we have a process in place, we have a documented process in place, certainly to make sure or ensure that our student records are protected. And ultimately, as I already kind of described with staff efficiency, we also can reduce our operational costs. So if we don't have to store file cabinets, if we don't have to have, a file room in each building, if we don't have to ship documents from, a high school to an administrative office for long-term storage or move things to, a barn or square footage that the district owns elsewhere, we can reduce a lot of those operational costs as it relates to storing paper. Some of the paper that we have to store, we can't get rid of for years and years and years. And so it's important if we can reduce square footage or those types of costs as it relates to either people storing things and retrieving them for audits or those types of things, or your FERPA mandates, being able to reduce operational costs as well from a square footage or a space perspective can certainly provide some benefits. And then, as I already kind of mentioned with your HIPAA and FERPA requirements, being able to comply with some of these guidelines as it relates to not only securing information and making sure it doesn't get out to the folks that it shouldn't get out to, but also being able to provide information in a reasonable time frame to parents who have a reasonable need to get things like a transcript or to provide a copy of a field trip that someone signed or things like that. So very flexible on how we can help with different types of documents, be able to help you with your different compliance regulations. And so what Education Essentials, which is the product that we're talking about today, delivers to your district is certainly a way to handle student records management. So We can help eliminate a lot of those paper-based filing cabinets, the long-term storage. We can allow for redaction of sensitive student information or HR records, those types of things. We can help you to achieve and maintain your FERPA and HIPAA compliance as it's related to PII or PHI inside of your districts. We can help you create approval routings, those types of things for your IEPs, your ongoing lesson plans if you've got a certain special needs classes, those types of things that require them. We can give you the ability to access information in a touchless fashion. So certainly still in the world of COVID, those types of things we want to try to mitigate as much as we can on passing things back and forth. And so going digital, either with just retrieving information or those web forms on the front end, being able to allow for online registration, online applications, those types of things, instead of having to hand a piece of paper over and bring it back is important. And then being able to create comprehensive student portfolios. So as we search for a student based on a student name or a student ID or a multitude of different things, being able to see all of the information that you have permission to inside of the solution is beneficial. And then certainly for the back office automation side, being able to take those paper-driven processes, maybe it's HR for staff applications or onboarding into web forms. We can certainly take advantage of that. Maybe it's continued education units, right? Being able to track those inside of a software so we know when folks are due, or we're able to notify them, hey, you need to get this done, or CPR certifications or things like that inside of the district. Being able to help the finance office digitize, route invoices, generate purchase orders or purchase requisitions, share data with your existing accounting applications, do three-way matching, all of those types of things to help with the back office automation certainly provides value. Being able to store school board minutes so that we can retrieve them not just by, maybe the date of the meeting or those types of things, but being able to search within those meeting minutes to be able to find something specific that we had talked about or approved or was discussed. And then for your, those districts that maintain their own school buses or certainly, janitorial services, those types of things where we're doing maintenance, being able to store those maintenance records. So we did this on this day, or, we had a sign off for here, or, we had to redo, the electrical in one of the classrooms or something like that. So being able to store those things and being able to have a history of those so we can manage costs or identify if there's something that we need to replace certainly is helpful. And then being able to integrate with records management systems or SIS systems like PowerSchool, Infinite Campus, those types of things. So being able to take all of this information and being able to search from those platforms into a centralized repository to be able to further find information that's relevant to us. And the way we do that is by leveraging 4 platforms of ECM. And it starts with Capture. Capture is essentially taking things that are paper-based or electronic documents. Think of an invoice that may come into your district via email from a vendor via PDF, right? So those types of things are what we're talking about with cloud transformation services. So being able to ingest that content, whether it's from a scanner, from a folder, from an email, and being able to extract the high-value information off of those documents so we can leverage that elsewhere, maybe an accounting system, certainly in our global search product, or maybe we want to leverage some of those items for workflow, being able to make that data useful as it's being ingested. And certainly as we're ingesting that content, being able to give us an image to store. So global search gives us the ability to securely store and access those documents, those images that we're bringing in to the solution. Leveraging global action for our business processes. So I had mentioned, an accounts payable folder or continuing education unit credits, those types of things, notifying folks. Our workflow engine gives you the ability to create processes that can help you either remember that something is due in a certain period of time. So if this invoice is due in 30 days, remind me so that I have the ability to pay it on time, or these student records are no longer required after 25 years. And so we've had personnel changes over the last 25 years, but the system is still babysitting this document, making sure that once we can get rid of it or we need to get rid of it, it's part of that retention policy. So being able to do things like that, as well as, an invoice coming in that needs to go to a principal's office for approval that's in a different building. So electronically notifying the principal that they have something to do as far as a decision made on a purchase or things like that. So that's what Global Action can do for us, is allow for a lot of different manual processes to become automated. And then lastly is Global Forms, the ability to take things that are typically captured on pieces of paper today, right, or in a non-standardized format, and being able to standardize how we collect this, leveraging things like tablets or web pages or phones or all kinds of fun things, and making those things electronic so that users can access it from a website. So instead of a parent having to come in to register their kid for a certain after school activity, maybe we have a web form that's provided on our website that parents can go to and fill it out electronically to register their kid for that after school activity. And so things like that are more useful or more more available to parents by digitizing a lot of those types of records, leveraging Global Forms. And so, as a FERPA compliance repository, so as we talk about capturing, storing, workflowing, and generating all of this content electronically, we have specific places in Education Essentials where we can store student records, right? So whether it's a cumulative record, so it might be something like, academic achievements or meal programs or permission slips or those types of things, or maybe it's something that the nurse has access to, so the health records. So if there's immunization things that we need, or allergen type information for a student, or emergency care plans, or those types of things, being able to secure those separate of even those cumulative records certainly is something we can do. And then for those folks that have special education departments, those types of things, being able to store all of the records associated with the special education needs. So whether it's IEPs, whether it's parental notice, whether it's ITPs, whether it's testing reports, those types of things, being able to store those once again in another secure environment is certainly useful. So how do we do all these things? It's a great question. Thanks for asking. Let's talk about it. So first and foremost, we talk about our secured repository, right? And so I'm already logged in, but if I were to log out, essentially via a browser, any of your users who have permission will have a username and password to the global search system. The global search system is where the documents are stored. It's where we look for them. And it's the main area that users will engage in when they're accessing the software. So as I come here, I'm going to log in as the administrator to the software. And that's going to present me with my unique access to the solution. Now, I'm the administrator, so I can see everything. But if you only had permission to student records, maybe these are the only archives that you see. Maybe you're in the finance department. You don't need to see student records at all. So perhaps there's a finance folder down here. Maybe there's one for HR. And if you don't have permission to things, you don't see them here. So if I'm a teacher just accessing student records that I have permission to, I don't need to see finance or HR, and so they wouldn't appear here for me. So first and foremost, the security associated with those logins is unique to users. Now we can also set them up as groups as well. So if you have roles or those types of things in your organization, so maybe teachers want to go here and we put them all in a group in AD, and we integrate with your Active Directory, and those teachers' permissions are pulled in automatically, certainly things that we can do. But ultimately, those permissions give you access not only to the archives, and archives are very similar to Windows folders in the fact that we can have as many as we want and we can name them whatever we want. But one of the benefits of these archives is that we don't need folders within folders within folders within folders to describe documents. We leverage data. So that critical data that might be coming off the records that we're scanning or that we're bringing in via email or leveraging web forms for, we want to be able to leverage that index data to describe those documents. And so a great example for student records might be student ID or student's first name, last name, their DOB, maybe the year they graduate, those types of things. As we look at finance, maybe it's different. Or as we look at HR, maybe it's different. So for HR, maybe we want something like employee name, right? The department they're in, the HR categories of documents, maybe when they were hired, or the documents themselves. Maybe for the finance department, we want invoices. And so for those invoices, we might leverage data like vendor name, PO number, invoice number, document date, those types of things. So very flexible. As you can see, these archives have changed based on the database I'm in, but ultimately those could be similarly created in your environment and segregated by that security, as I mentioned. The other thing that's different about us in Windows is how the security works. So, when I click on this, I can see certain documents within the cumulative records. But as I mentioned, I'm an administrator, but if I didn't want folks to have permission to export this document or take the data out related to it or email it out of the solution or delete it or move it or those types of things, we have the ability to protect the documents inside of the solution. Whereas in Windows, even if I have a read-only folder, I could take a record and file save as to my desktop. Once I do that, it's mine. I can do anything I want to it. So being able to more robustly or more granularly secure the information inside of the solution certainly is a benefit of a system like ours versus a historical Windows system or things like that. One of the other benefits to the solution is our audit trail. So as I click on a document, I can see who's done what to this record. So I can see if it's ever been emailed, who's ever edited it, who's ever looked at it. And I do that by username, by date timestamp, and by the action that was performed. So I have a history of what's going on with every record inside of our system as well. So very important that not only do we have our unique usernames and passwords to log in, and those unique usernames and passwords present us with security to the software, but being able to customize how we're storing records, being able to customize the folders, being able to customize the data that we're looking at to find or describe records, and knowing that we're doing all that while providing a secure environment for our user base certainly are all benefits to a centralized solution like global search. Now, if you have a back scanning company that you're working with, one of the benefits is they may present you with data and docs, right? Or data and file name, and we want to ingest that into a centralized solution. We have tools that can allow us to capture documents inside of our system that maybe you paid someone to scan for you and they've just given you a file system and a CSV, or maybe they've given you the files with certain file names, right? So we certainly could take advantage of that. But we also want to give you guys the ability to be able to scan documents in yourself or bring documents in yourself. And so before we have all these documents inside of a solution, we need to scan stuff or we need to capture things. And so one of the easiest ways to capture things inside of the software, I'm just going to pull a random document here from a file folder, is drag and drop. So I just drag and dropped a TIFF file from my file system, and it opened up a copy for me so I can physically see it. It gives us those standardized fields on how you would like to describe that type of document inside of the software. And now I certainly have the ability to do things. So maybe I want to, leverage a drop-down list to be able to standardize, once again, how we are filing documents inside of the solution. Maybe I want to use my fingers and, type things in on things that we're looking for, maybe like a student name. And maybe even do a lookup into a backend system to be able to look up other information about that student based on the student ID. But outside of your fingers or database lookups, we have the ability to also take advantage of technology. And the first way we do that is by leveraging a technology called key-free indexing. Key-free indexing essentially uses a technology called OCR, optical character recognition. So we're OCRing this document on the fly, and that gives us the ability to point and click on things that we might care about. So as I look over the last name here, Young, we can see underneath that the system is showing me what the software is reading. And so all I have to do is click on Young. Oh, first name now, great, Gary. Oh, date of birth, perfect, I can click on that. What's our graduation year? I could click on this too. Notice this is an invalid entry, but the date of birth is not. That's because, once again, as part of our standardization, I'm able to enforce certain things as it relates to data that we might want to capture. And so this helps us as users be able to make sure that our employees are capturing things in a meaningful way. The last thing here is I'm clicking on date entered, but I can't actually do anything with that. And that's because that's a system field. And what that means is, as I save this document inside of the software, it's going to auto-fill that out with the date and time that was entered into the software. So we have kind of semi-manual user ways that we can bring stuff in. So whether we're leveraging drop-down lists, manually typing things in, database connections that help us pull other information in, or we're doing pointing and clicking on this information, And that works across all different document types. It doesn't just have to be student records. Maybe that's a finance department for invoices. Maybe it's an HR record for W-4s or I-9s that are coming in. So very flexible on how we can drag and drop stuff into the solution. Right. Some of the other ways that we can bring documents into the system in a more semi-manual fashion. What if I've got a Word document? So I'm typing up a record, maybe it's a permission slip or something like that, that I'm bringing into the solution. And so as I open this and I type in, permission slip here, right, I can essentially take advantage of a couple of things. If I want this to stay a Word document and I want to bring this into the software, well, just like you do today, maybe you want to do a file save as to a centralized server. Well, we can do that inside of our system and notice that these archives are the same as the archives in the global search system. So I could select cumulative records. I could save this document into the system, and then it will pop up the things that we need to index from that standpoint. So it gives us the ability to then index that inside of the solution, or I can launch it in the web and key free index it if I prefer. Right? But maybe I don't want this to stay a Word document. Maybe I want this to be a non-modifiable PDF. Well, just like you do today, maybe you want to print it, and instead of having to pick a Microsoft print to PDF, perhaps I want to just print straight to global search. So I have the ability to do that inside the solution as well. So we'll take this Word document and make it a PDF and store it inside of the solution as a PDF. So very flexible on how we bring documents in. And the importance of me showing you that is that's how your users work today. They're currently dragging and dropping or file saving, save as, or their file printing to a PDF and storing records. So if your users work that way, they can continue to work that way, leveraging the global search solution, right? But what if we want more automation? What if I've got a giant file room that I want to scan in, and I want an easy way for a user or a student or someone to be able to scan in the historical information? Well, one of the easiest ways to leverage storing that type of information is to leverage a technology we have called Capture QR. Capture QR essentially gives you a template as a user. So as an example here, I'm doing the cumulative records document type. It gives you a template that you can access via a web browser. So I'm in Chrome. So I could come in here as a user and I could fill out some information about this. Now, maybe you don't want to fill out all this information. Maybe for your archived historical documents, you just need to know the student's first and last name and maybe the year they graduated. And those are the only things that you care about, right? From that standpoint, little piece of me. As you print that, a couple of things happen. First and foremost, it generates a QR cover sheet page for you. What this does is a couple of things. It certainly takes that information and it creates a QR code that our system can translate, right? So academic achievement, Justin Wilson, 97, right? These are things that our software can read. So as this is printed out and placed on top of Justin Wilson's record, the system will understand that it's Justin Wilson's record because the QR codes are telling us that. The other thing that this has up here is we can see this square 9 separator, right? This is essentially so that as I scan in Justin's record, if I had Sean's record below that, or Dustin's record, or Nick's record, right? And I had 4 student records and I wanted to scan them all at the same time, this would first separate Justin's from Sean's from Dustin's from Nick's. And then it would store Justin's file as Justin's, Dustin's as Dustin's, Sean's as Sean's, because the QR codes would be different for those folks. And so a user is just generating QR codes, putting them on top of a record, and then scanning them in bulk. And that's a very easy way for us to scan in historical records into the software. So as users are doing that, and once those records are scanned in, now a user has the information. If we just did first name, last name, graduation year, then you would see those fields in here, right? And we'd have the ability to leverage those. The other thing that we can do as part of that ingestion, and any ingestion though, is if that student record is 400 pages long, I can at least narrow it down to those 400 pages by typing in Justin Wilson 1997, right? But if I wanted to search within Justin Wilson's record for some information, I have the ability to do that too. So I'm going to search for the word Imitrex as part of a keyword in this health record. The reason I'm doing that is not because Imitrex is contained within the index data, although it is right there, but it's because the word Imitrex, we can see that one hit as I open this document. It's because the word Imitrex is contained within the document itself, and I can see it highlighted right there. So imagine being able to search Justin Wilson 1997 and getting Justin Wilson's record. But you want to look at my transcript from my freshman year, maybe my 6th grade. You could do a search for 6th grade or transcript and get all of the different transcripts by going to a specific page in the solution. So being able to not only search by this index data, but also being able to search by these keywords gives us even more flexibility when we're looking for things, right? So rather than just searching in here for a particular type of record based on a student's last name, right, as in Miller, right, and running a search on that and getting all of the different records associated with it, that keyword search gives us the ability to jump in and get even more information out of it. So a few different ways we can leverage as part of that capture process, the searchability. The other thing we have the ability to do inside of the software from an automation standpoint is outside of those barcode cover sheets that a user might be manually generating, we have the ability to also leverage a technology called zonal-based OCR. Zonal-based OCR essentially means that I have some sort of structured document, and a transcript is a great example of that. I have some sort of structured document inside of the solution, and I don't want to have to do a cover sheet for all of them, or I don't want to have a user type in or key-free index those types of things. So what a user has the ability to do, or what we can do as part of the software, is we give you the ability to create templates. And so maybe I want to say, here's the person's name, and as I come down here, here's their date of birth, and as I go to the bottom, I could put a zone around their graduation year. What this does is if I were to put a stack of transcripts into the feeder, and I know they're all one page, right? Or I want to separate when the name changes on the transcript, we can do those types of things as well. But I could put a stack of these in the feeder and hit start without a cover sheet. The system will know based on this template where the name is, where the date of birth is, where the graduation year is, those types of things. So it's very flexible on understanding via zonal OCR on automated extraction. The other thing that the solution can do is it can say, oh, I know that this is a transcript because it says the word transcript on it. So you may have multiple templates. One might be for your transcripts. One might be for a Verizon invoice for the finance department. One might be for a W-4 for your HR department. And the system can tell which document it is based on a technology called classification. So looking for unique things about that document type. So for a transcript, might be the word transcript, right, that we leverage. Or a couple of other things. It doesn't have to be just one value. It could be others. So leveraging classification, the system can decide how we're scanning things in. Now, we still might segregate capture by finance, by HR, right, by student records, so that we're further protecting that information as part of a compliance practice. But as I scan a Verizon invoice and an AT&T invoice and a Square 9 invoice, right, the system can determine which one's which and apply the appropriate template. As we're doing HR, maybe it's W-4s and I-9s, right? As we're doing student records, maybe it's a transcript versus an IEP. And so the software can help understand those different things. The other thing that our system has the ability to do for finance records is to leverage AI. And so for a finance record, as we might be looking at a Verizon or an AT&T or Square 9 invoice, we don't necessarily have to even create templates for those. So for things like vendor names, PO numbers, invoice dates, invoice amounts, those types of things, we have an AI software in the back end, even over and above zonal OCR, where we don't have to create templates for those finance type records. And so leveraging AI makes it even more impressive because now we don't have to build templates or maintain templates over time for those records that may change. I may use this vendor today and never use them again. Well, I don't want to have to build a template for that. And so leveraging AI gives us that flexibility for those finance records inside of the solution. So those are kind of the capture ways we can bring documents into the system and certainly some benefits of it. But we also want to take a look at the last way we can capture documents, and that's with web forms. So being able to take an electronic record and being able to, or I'm sorry, a paper-based record and make it electronic provides value. So maybe you have teachers doing their assessment forms on a piece of paper. Well, perhaps I want to digitize that. And so here's an example of what that form might look like. And so as I open this up, notice it automatically pulls the date, and it has the ability for us to put stuff in here, right? So that a student or a parent can fill out a teacher assessment. And so maybe we've got radio buttons where I can only select one, right? Those types of things that we want to leverage. Maybe I want a place for additional comments where we can do those types of things. And then ultimately, when this is submitted, what happens? Well, perhaps it goes to the principal of that particular school, or the manager or the supervisor of that particular teacher, so that they can review it, right? And provide feedback to the teacher for that particular course. So that might be one thing that happens, is it goes to that person. It notifies them that a new assessment's been filled out. The other thing we can do is we can take a copy of this record and we can store it inside of the solution as a PDF. So maybe we have teacher files in there outside of just student records, and we're storing these assessments related to that, so that we have the ability to look at history as it's associated with particular folks, right? Maybe we want to give transcript requests. We want a place for parents to be able to leverage that online. And so we have the ability to put just a link on our webpage where we can put a transcript request out there. And based on information that we're getting, those types of things, we can fulfill it or deny it based on the information we're looking for. So the point of me showing you all these different things is that the forms, right, they're all different. I'm collecting different information on all of these. I've got toolkits that can help out. I've got the ability to do required fields. If I wanted to put, 01, 05, 1997 on here, it's too many digits. I'm typing on my keyboard, but it's only giving me 4 digits, right? I can't put an A in there. Doesn't work. It has to be numeric from that standpoint. So a lot of different things we have to do inside of the software, but not just for your education records. Think about maybe leveraging that for even your human resources records, right? So W-4s, I-9s, things like that we typically have to fill out electronically or on a piece of paper. Being able to do that in an electronic fashion. So as I come to an I-9, not only do I have the ability now to fill out this I-9 information digitally, right? But I also have the ability to collect signatures, those types of things on these forms. So very flexible on how we not only allow you to put predefined fields in here or allow for signatures, but we also have the ability to collect things that are required inside of the functions, from that standpoint. So as an example here, if I'm a permanent resident, I need that alien number. Whereas if I'm not, I don't need it, right? Inside of the software. So once again, very flexible on how we leverage web forms. But ultimately, after this is submitted, we can take that data and not only perform a workflow on it, but we also have the ability to perhaps store that inside of the solution for you. So if you had a user fill out a W-4 and then they hit submit, right, that could go into a payroll folder in your HR item. And then as a user looks at it internally, it's not that form that we were seeing that we were filling out. It's a physical copy of a W-4, just like they filled it out on a typewriter on the computer by hand, right? So we have the ability to store this information in its appropriate formats, whatever those formats are for you, or as you look at those. All right. So we've talked about a lot of things as it relates to the solution, but some of the other things that we want to talk about inside of the software. We had mentioned, looking for records. So being able to do a search based on, any method of criteria, first name, last name, student ID, those kinds of fun things. But as we're looking at these records, what if we need to do things to them and we have permission to do so? So as an example, as I'm looking at these records inside the software now, maybe I got a request from someone for a copy of this transcript, but before I send it to them, right, I want to block out some information as is associated with this. So maybe I want to block out the date of birth from here, right? Or maybe I want to block out this other personally identifiable information. So I have the ability to do things like annotations inside of the software. This is an example of a redaction. I showed you highlighting earlier. Maybe we want to do a post-it note on this, right? remind me to do this on a finance invoice, or I need to ask a student's parent something, right? The neat thing about these annotations are we're not destroying the original. We are essentially allowing for users to be able to do things to this record or do these types of things to the document without destroying the original. So if I'm a user that has access to this document, but I don't have access to annotations, this is what it looks like to me. I can't get behind any of it. But if I'm a user that has permission to annotations, I do have the ability to come in and delete or remove some of these or change them. But if I wanted to disseminate this to someone, let's say I was sending this to a parent, right? I could do that via email with or without those annotations. And so if I did redact some information from here and I disseminated it with annotations to a parent, I could make sure that those redactions carried over, those types of fun things. The other thing I can do with these records is perhaps I need to add a copy to this. So as I open this, maybe I need a page 2, right? Or there's a piece of supporting documents that I missed. So I have the ability to insert pages to this, either from a file or from a scanner or those types of things. And I want to attach a record to this to make it a page 2 through however many pages that scan is, right? I have the ability to leverage that. Maybe this is a multi-page document and I accidentally scan them together. So maybe this is Gary's document and Justin's document. Well, I could also check one of those or multiple pages and I could digitally burst those, or I could separate those from each other inside of the solution. So now the 2-page document becomes 2 1-page documents, appropriately Gary's and Justin's. So we have the ability to also digitally do things like that inside the solution. Or maybe there's a page 3 that I really want to be page 1. Well, I could take 3 and drag it up on top of page 1 inside of the solution. So very flexible on those types of things as well that we can leverage inside of the software from a document standpoint. And as we're scanning those old images, maybe some of them are scanned sideways. So maybe we want to rotate those, or maybe we want to perform some cleanup on those, like de-speckling them, or the scanner scanned them crooked. So we want to straighten those out. We want to de-skew it. So we also have the ability to perform some image enhancement functions here so that the images that we're storing are valuable to us in the long term. All right. So some of the other things that we talked about are workflow and retention and those types of things. And so, maybe I need to keep this stuff for 30 years after graduation. And so when this date is 30 years old, move it to a recycle bin. And that way we can spot check it over a period of 90 days or 120 days, whatever that policy looks like. And after that, we can come in and delete it. So maybe in your solution, you have, a recycle bin down here where the documents go automatically. A user can then review the recycle bin and delete stuff out or move it out of there if it needs to remain. If it's not part of that retention policy, we have the ability to do things like that. Maybe as part of an approval process, right? So maybe as part of the finance department, or even teachers requesting permission to do a field trip or something like that. Maybe we want to leverage workflow inside of the solution. And so, as I look at these invoices here, I have some documents that are approved. Maybe there's a next step on them. And so as an example, I open up a copy of an invoice in the finance department, and I know it's approved because the status said it was approved, but I haven't entered that into my accounting system yet, right? So maybe I need to enter into the accounting system, right? Or maybe there's a problem and I need to restart the approval process. So these buttons down here are customizable as well based on the workflows that we're trying to perform. This is an example of an approval process for finance, but maybe it's something for a student, or maybe it's a received notice that we know the nurse now has an immunization record, or the nurse has medication received and stored, those types of things inside of the software. So very flexible on how we can leverage manual intervention as part of a workflow. So the system can notify folks, right, that they have things to do. So as an example, maybe the system emailed the person for this invoice and said, hey, you've got a job to do. You've got an invoice that requires approval. And they certainly could come in here and click on, this link, and it would take them straight to that invoice. Or perhaps they want to leverage, a search leveraging this invoice number, those types of things from the system, but very flexible on how we can use the system for babysitting documents like retention policies, using it for proactive management of approvals or things like that, like a finance approval process. but we can also use it to send notifications to folks to let them know that they have things to do. The other thing that we have to do from an integration standpoint is we could potentially take all this data once it's approved and push it to your accounting system so that you don't have to recreate or manually type in this transaction into your accounting software. The other thing we have the ability to do inside the solution, I mentioned, integration with things like PowerTeacher Pro or PowerSchool or some other softwares. What if you just needed to look up information from a web page for PowerSchool? So as an example here, I can engage a hotkey. I can say, hey, I just need the information for this student ID. And as I perform that function, notice it opens up in a separate tab and it presents me with the data where the student ID equaled 158694. So leveraging a technology that we have called image exchange, giving you the ability to integrate searching with not just your student records, but also could be from an email, could be from your accounting software, could be from your HR information system. So all those different disparate softwares we could potentially tie into and leverage searching into our centralized system from those different disparate records. So talked about who Square9 is, how we're capturing documents, certainly the searching and retrieval of those records, the workflow for managing retentions, approvals, or different processes that are typically done manually inside your organizations. We've talked about the different methods of searching, whether we're using the index data or keyword searching or image exchange to search from other softwares. And then we've also talked about web forms, the ability to take paper-based documents today and make them electronic. Those are kind of the pillars of ECM. Those are the pillars of what Square9 does from a digital transformation standpoint for your different education opportunities, your different school districts, those types of things. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. And as Nick mentioned at the beginning, if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A section of the Zoom interface. And one is already here. One of the questions is how are we installed? And I'm assuming that means, are we installed locally or do we have cloud-based solutions? So we have both options for our users. We have the ability to install this within your own IT infrastructure. I have schools that have, robust IT departments, and they've got the ability to run this internally to their environment. More than happy to do that. I also have some schools who do not have the robust IT, or they just like things in the cloud. So we can also run the software in the cloud. So either of those is a viable option, whether you want it in the cloud or whether you want it on premise. I have another question here that talks about how we license. Well, we license things based on concurrent users. And so what that means is if you have 100 unique users in your district and you want them all to have access to the solution, you do not need to buy 100 licenses. You only need to buy as many licenses as are required for users to log in at the same time. So if you have 100 folks, but only 10 of them are going to be in the system at any given time, then you would only need to leverage 10 concurrent licenses. You might think of some questions, but if not, I appreciate everyone's attendance today and everyone watching the presentation. If you do have any additional questions or those types of things as you move forward, please take a look at our website, square-9.com. You can certainly email us, sales@square-9.com, or just connect with us on our different social media platforms. So I appreciate everyone's time today and look forward to speaking with you.